It's a great pleasure to introduce you, I'm sure you all know anyway, but if you don't know, the wonderful Joel Bell and Bushra Al-Turk, whose crazy and wonderful idea it was to set up the Alternative Conservatoire. And I guess the first obvious question is, what possessed you? What was the inspiration, or who have been the inspirations to set something like this up, to attempt this in the first place? And do you want to explain something about what the this is as a result of that?
So I guess it was a process of looking forwards and backwards. So looking forwards in terms of the young people I was meeting, the young artists I was meeting, and realising that a lot of the things that were happening and that they were interested in weren't being served, and a lot of them weren't having the opportunities I thought they should have.
Do you mean these participants or other younger artists that you've worked with in the past?
Artists I've worked with in the past. So working as an electric guitarist, interacting in whether it was other courses or giving workshops or going to institutions or concerts, I met quite a lot of young people who are not fitting into the mainstream. So looking forward in that sense, and also looking to the present and the past. So for the present, I realised I had a lot of opportunities and interactions that I was quite fortunate to have. So I was meeting a lot of people from different traditions and cultures, and that happened over a period of around 10 years, sort of beginning with working with the Atlas Ensemble, which is a fantastic ensemble in Amsterdam that had 30 musicians from different ensembles, and composers would set up little groups and you'd have to interact with these musicians. And it was interesting because some of them read music, some of them didn't, some of them almost did, some of them didn't speak English, and you had to navigate your way around these musicians. And they were such fantastic individuals and performers. I was very keen to work out a way to musically work with them. And also around this period I spent, I think, around 10 years at Club Inegal with Peter Weigold, and we would have these seasons where every other week you would have a concert with everyone from Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment, or maybe a Persian setar player, or a comic, or a Maori shaman, and they'd come into the club and we'd have around 3 hours to make a concert work with these people. And what happened was I went in it as a jazz guitarist, and I left it very much not a jazz guitarist. So over this period I realised that for me this was really valuable, and I wanted to pass it on. And also that instantaneous music making in the moment I thought was very valuable. And then looking back in the past, I realised what a misfit I was at college. So I went to it wasn't Royal back then, but it's now the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire. And I sort of stuck out like a sore thumb, because I was writing for jazz ensembles, but it wasn't really jazz. I was writing for classical people, but it had big chunks of improvisation in it. And I noticed there were also lots of other misfits knocking around.
Birmingham's got that character to it, the Conservatoire.
Yeah. But on the other hand, I also didn't pay for my education. So I was quite keen to offer something, as well as all these other different elements swimming around in my thoughts. I also thought that it shouldn't be a barrier. So that's sort of the genesis.
Yeah. So, and Bushra, have there been particular inspirations for you in your artistic journey? As educators or as models?
Inspiration as educators and models.
That have had a bearing on the way in which because for those of you who aren't aware, Joel and Bushra are a team, yeah, or 2/3 of a team. There's a small one who's not here present, who's the third member of the team. So this project also comes, I'm assuming, in part through conversations over breakfast or conversations in the car whilst you're taking your child to nursery or to your parents or other things. It's something that emerges over time, and I'm assuming as well, therefore, your own experience also has a bearing on it.
Yes, definitely. My experience definitely has a bearing on it. I mean, I work a lot with different ensembles, not just Western ensembles, not Western classical ensembles, but also cross-cultural ensembles. I have my own, but also it's always on the edges of things. I never felt I belonged anywhere, really. I mean, not just culturally myself, but musically, I never felt I belonged anywhere. Always on the edges, and that's what we wanted to create with this. People who are on the edges, and find those meeting points between those who are on the edges. And there's always a common language that we wanted to explore, and that's the kind of root, that's the source of it, I think. But also, in order to set something up like this, I mean, it's a lot of hard work, right? And you have to be prepared for this.
Huge work.
But it has to start from a kind of sad and angry place. Because, you read the newspaper, it's all closing down. All the music departments are closing down. Nothing's free for, and people have to pay for music education. And we wanted to do something that, like a kind of boutique course that is tailored specifically around each student. All their technical needs, but also their artistic needs in order to get to their dream point for after the course.
I think this is one of the miraculous things about the Alternative Conservatoire, and that perhaps is a message from today, and I'll be interested to take from the performance as well, is creating things in a time of seemingly diminishing opportunity is a political act. In the sense that you create the space for something when everything else seems to be closing. It goes against the flow of that, and it's a beautiful gesture in its own way. But I wanted to ask where and how you recruited and found the musicians and artists that have taken part in the Conservatoire, in the Alternative Conservatoire, where you found them, and what the process involved of bringing them together.
I think they found us, really. I get the impression that all of them were looking for something and couldn't find it.
So misfits don't hang around the obvious places. You have to go and misfits find each other in that sense.
We put it out there as much as we could. And when we had the applications, it was actually a very easy process in terms of choosing who to have on the course, because they did jump out at us, and a lot of them had such an interesting story. It's very easy in some ways to find them.
So it wasn't like Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 12, kind of finding the gang that's going to do the heist. It's you've done a call out, you put the bat signal out, and people have seen it and they've responded.
I think so. I think a lot of people living in these in-between spaces are really desperate to find somewhere. And so the way we set it up, is designed to be able to let these people find places, and also to, rather than working on very boxed things, it's more the connection between things.
Do you want to give an example of one of the students, or a couple of the students, just to get an idea of the diversity and the range of people that have come together for this, the community that you've gathered for it?
Yes, I think what they all had in common was, in my opinion, they were in some way failed by the education they had got or not got. So we had some people who had gone through quite a large point of their early career and found themselves in a place they didn't enjoy. We had people who had also got quite far in their career but realised that their knowledge was lacking because they didn't have access to somewhere to give them the craft. We had people who were nudging on the edge of things in terms of art, so they could be working with visual art, and they couldn't find anywhere for them that suited them. And we had people who were just looking for something else. So there were conversations that went along the lines of, I've done this, and I know there's something else out there, but I just don't know what it is.
Which is a good place to build a curriculum, in that sense.
It's an interesting place to build a
very much so.
curriculum. The initial seeds of how to make it work were actually very different. When we started, it was along the lines of, we will tailor the course to each person. Each person will have their own pathway through the course. But I quickly realised that actually the community is more important. And it's far more interesting for these people to coexist in the same space and go through the same process, but still have aspects of that process that serve the needs they have. But then again, it might serve the needs of other students, they just don't know it yet.
My sense is that any good pedagogical process involves a two-way learning, and I'm wondering what you learned from some of the students, or having the students assemble together. Because it's quite difficult setting up an alternative conservatoire, something that is based on a certain kind of liminal edge, or something that doesn't have a centre to it, or at least the centre as such will be each of the students in their, or each of the early career artists in their own practice, rather than there being an outside-in process where there's a core curriculum and everybody has to do the same things. Whereby actually they bring things themselves that you're not necessarily expecting, and that provide an opportunity for you to learn through the process as well.
Well, the core of the course was the doing. That was the core. So every week they met with a house band, and by working with them and finding their own way to work with them, as well as me giving them processes to try and experiment with, that was the core of the course. So it's very much doing. And then, I was very surprised to get so many people working in cross-discipline practice, which sort of threw me a little bit and made me have to rethink the course a lot. And that's why one of the reasons I approached you, because you had a very particular area of expertise that allowed them to make sense of a lot of the things they were thinking about.
That also doesn't belong anywhere.
No. And in a way, we're home for educators who don't belong anywhere, who cross many different things. A few of the people we've had involved have said, I wish this existed 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Well, hopefully it'll exist in less than 10 to 15 years from now on a more regular basis. I was going to ask what you see as the opportunities coming from this, what the next venture might be.
Well, we're hoping for further renditions of this in England, but we've also been invited to take a version of this on into certain parts of Europe. I'm not going to say where, because I don't want to jinx it. But there are some preparations in place and some partners being gathered and sought, so to speak. Right, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, we're just looking for an extension of the network. So they've all gone through this process and developed a community. We do want it to continue, and we're trying to source opportunities for them going forwards. And this concert is very much, it's not a finisher, it's a starting line into the next part of their career.
Brilliant. Well, a last question, because I'm conscious that some need to do final stage resets and so on before we get going. We're invited to be entwined, to be enfolded or wrapped, to be bound, in a sense, within this. How would you characterise the audience's invitation to this event, to this performance? How would you describe what we might be about to experience in half an hour or so?
I think, it feels like a small word, but variety is certainly something. You'll have a variety of different voices, but a lot of them are working on not just the presentation of music, but how that music interfaces, connects with, and draws in an audience, and the role of the audience in the actual creation of the music.
Brilliant. It's one of the things we talked about actually when I came in. So very pleased to hear that. I'm very curious as to what that might involve. I don't need to know the answer now because we'll find out in the course of it. But I guess do we have time to open for questions? I'm not entirely sure that we do, but
We're happy to have a chat.
exactly what I was going to say. So no one's rushing off, and there's a bar, and there are even some very tasty snacks on the side there as well. Strongly recommended. So if you want to hang around, you know what they look like. I can, if you want to ask me questions, I can answer what I know. But these are the experts, and they'd love to have a conversation with you. So hang around, stick around, enjoy the show. My fellow co-performers as audience members of what happens in whatever way we're called on to do that, and I'd really like to congratulate you and invite us all as a quick thank you. There's the one moment on stage that Joel and Bushra, in a sense, get to take their own bow, as it were, or their own acclaim for months and months of incredibly hard work to bring this together. So congratulations, and we'll look forward to the show.
Satisfied with men's carpentry. Arouse itself, standing up, men! Deprive the world victim and take it over its death!
Such a desire that must first be quenched. So open the sluices and so saturate and swell her rate. Such satiate, please, satiate. Hunger, such hunger cannot be filled. Satiate, must, satiate, must quench this desperate thirst.
As I walked out on the cliff top there, a taste fell upon my tongue. My eyes they burned, my lips turned cold, and salt filled my lungs. I peered over the cliff edge, stared into the sea below. A searing glare met my wincing eyes as the waves crashed to and fro. I slammed the door behind me, though I felt it had followed me home. As the water was slowly rising, I knew it had made me so. I looked down at my fingers. They were plucked and puckered and bruised. My breath was less and less and less. My useless mouth, it was doomed. I threw myself at that cliff edge, craving the water below. My skin was molded, my lungs they turned green, my mouth filled with sand. A hard stone through which the sea had poured. See, my breath was less and less and less and less and less through my salt-encrusted lungs. Now atop my tomb, my empty grave, like a sailor uninterred. Atop my tomb, my empty grave, like a sailor uninterred. Atop my tomb, my empty grave, oyster shells will be laid. Thank you so much. Is this on? Hello, hello, hello. Thank you. So I'm Cassandra Gurling / Agama. That was my piece Acousmaticae. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to all the wonderful musicians that took part. We did a short breathing exercise before. The whole point of the piece was to see how we can lock in and go somewhere together. So thank you for going somewhere with us.
Io, Telefassa, Libya, Europa, Pasiphae, Ariadne, Phaedra, Io, Telefassa, Libya, Europa, Pasiphae, Ariadne, Phaedra, Io, Telefassa, Libya, Europa, Pasiphae, Ariadne, Phaedra, Io, Telefassa, Libya, Europa, Pasiphae, Ariadne, Phaedra. begin. Like Talia, Croesus, and Persephone, Europa was gathering narcissi, hyacinths, violets, roses, and thyme within a shining golden basket, embossed with a heifer swimming in an enamel sea. Like a vivid dream, a bull of dazzling white appears, and she is abducted, taken into the water. It was the boars of Ida that carried Europa to Asia in a ship shaped like a bull, and she was forced to marry their king, Asterius. One of their grandchildren would have his same celestial name, a man with a bull's head, trapped in a labyrinth, awaiting his victims. This is a tale much more spoken of than Europa's. Theseus and the Minotaur. Of you? What will your destiny be? Where can you hide your fearful passions? She was carrying was her destiny. A bull would carry her off from Asia toward the continent that was to be called Europe. Just as years before, the desperate, tormented sea, wandering of a young cow who had first grazed in Greek pastures, was to end in Egypt with the light touch of Zeus's hand. This was Europa's ancestor. Her name was Io. One day, the embossed golden basket would be handed from Telephassa to Libya to Europa, and she carried it along without thinking.